Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Unframe of Mind show. I am so glad you came back to check us out for one more time. That is a horrible intro, so we'll probably cut that part out. Anyway, today I'm speaking with a gentleman by the name of Trent Gander from the Irreverent Gentleman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Trent Gander. I'm the Irreverent Gentleman at the Gentleman's University of Manliness. I focus on people's social skills, basic business practices, that's covering basic understandings of law, economics, and similar things. I also focus in on manipulation and the effect that history has on our lives today.
All right, that sounds awesome. This last election and the anxiety that everyone felt.
Oh, thank goodness you brought up Donald Trump. Okay.
I'm just curious how you kind of view how that whole election went compared to maybe how old are you?
I am almost 22 years old.
Almost 22. Oh,
yes.
You're still counting half years, huh?
Yeah, I've actually been mistaken for being 30 over text, so.
No, it's all good. I mean, you do definitely sound a little more educated than the average 22-year-old for sure. What I'm wondering is what was, because you've experienced. I'm pretty sure you can remember the election of Obama 8 years ago, which that's within reason to suggest, and then you see the election of Donald Trump and how that whole thing has played out, how it's still playing out, even though you would think that normally after an election things tend to start calming down and normalizing, but I was just curious what your perspective was on the whole circus of it all. What's been your experience of it?
My experience, I come from a very conservative background, so obviously, while I wouldn't go so far as to say some people said that Obama was not our president, I would say that he was president. I was not happy with a lot of the things he did, and I'm sure I'm not going to be happy with a lot of the things that Donald Trump does. That's what we have as a representative government, and that's come to be expected because we're not robots.
Mm-hmm.
I can, however, address that probably, despite the fact that what we would refer to as mainstream media cannot grasp, is that Donald Trump did not win because of Russian hacking.
Oh, sure he did. Sure he did.
He actually used basic marketing techniques. First he had a mission. The mission is become president of the United States. He had a simple message. It was monosyllabic: make America great again.
Yeah, you can't get more basic than that.
And he continued hammering home those points. And the thing about it is that if you put this big, voluminous speech behind it, like a lot of the other Republicans did, of the three people who were technically outsiders, Donald Trump had the simplest and the most down-to-earth message of them all. Whether you agree with it or not is up to personal preference. But you get someone like Ben Carson, who I had somewhat hoped for, but you have someone who is, what was he? He's a neurosurgeon. That's a very, very highly interactive and highly encompassing profession. It's very specialized.
Of course, Ben Carson's really used to talking to people, who have a higher intellect and, using much more complicated language and that kind of thing. And like you said, it seems like Donald Trump was able to connect with the everyman, the common man, and able to get across his message in the most simple way possible. And I agree with you that I think that's why he won, is because of just his basic knowledge of marketing and business and how people respond to certain messages.
Yeah, the other thing was that he stayed true to his brand, despite the fact that he may have had goof-ups in his the way he said things, or how it was interpreted, or what he wanted people to think and what they actually thought.
And do you think
he stayed true to his brand?
And do you think oh, sorry, go ahead.
And the major thing for this was that there's been a tradition, apparently among the Republicans, that wherever you go to Iowa, you dress in what is known as a Canadian tuxedo, which is you have jeans on and like a blazer. or you have jeans. You dress as a quote-unquote common man, but Donald Trump did not do this. He dressed as Donald Trump dresses every day. So with staying true to his brand, he showed a dependability, and he wasn't trying to put up a show or a front, or at least that's what he was trying to portray to the people of Iowa. And I think that's one of the reasons people were won over, because he had a simple message. I'll hit it again. He stayed true to his image. He didn't try to change up and do this massive rebranding campaign in the midst of his election. That would have killed him politically.
So I know one of the things that you're real heavy excited about is the art of persuasion, and I was just curious what your thoughts are on how persuasion played a role in earning Donald Trump the presidency. How do you think that played a part?
Persuasion definitely played a role in that. It was very similar to the other probably controversial, for lack of a better term, right-wing spokesperson with Milo Yiannopoulos, was that he used the scandal and at least Trump used the scandal and the shock and I can't believe he said that to his advantage. Pretty much he got the mainstream media, CNN, NBC, he got free advertising by being an absolute madman. He went over the top with everything. And people could not believe, oh, that's against the standardized practice that we have for the last 8-10 years.
Yeah, that's not how we do things. What are you doing? and
exactly.
I think I agree with you there. I think that was one of the more brilliant things that happened through this election is people are tired of the status quo and the establishment, and they know that something's wrong. I don't think most people can pinpoint what it is that's wrong, but I think everybody can agree that something is definitely wrong. And when you put somebody like Trump, who's like going against all of the standards that have been set before him, and just crashing through all the hurdles, it's like, okay, this guy's interesting. Fuck it, let's try doing this. Let's see what happens, because it can't be any worse than the status quo if we vote for Hillary. Is that you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I usually try to play my political leanings close to the vest because, like I said before, knife fights ensue, and it's like I really want to keep my blood pressure and all my hair by the time I'm 30.
Oh, I've done gave that up. I got 4 kids. I done lost my hair a couple years ago.
Well, yeah, but that's your kids. You care about your kids.
But I do have an epic beard, though, so I guess that's okay.
Oh, that's fantastic. But yeah, the thing about it is you have it's not necessarily a cult, but you can take things from cults. The art of persuasion. You have a charismatic leader. You can't deny that, despite the fact that he is brash and that he is loud and he repeats himself a lot. Donald Trump is, for the most part, charismatic. He keeps your attention. He keeps you entertained. It's not like you're listening to a librarian read off the Dewey Decimal System in order.
I would have totally voted for that, though, if somebody had done that.
Exactly, because it was outside of the norm. Everyone loves the underdog stories because for some reason they factor a lot into our traditions.
Right.
You couldn't imagine a better underdog than Donald Trump, despite the fact that he's like a billionaire. Compared to, we have the coronated queen of the United States in Hillary Clinton, and then there's this guy. What the heck? What is going on with this?
So the next part of this would be to discuss maybe the after effects. Typically during an election, I've been through a few elections myself when I started really paying attention. And it seems like, after the election's done, everybody kind of simmers down and goes back to their daily lives. And the discussion over politics tends to, settle down. The dust settles and you don't hear it as much. But it seems like there is this, hysteria, I guess, going on still, primarily from the left. The right's kind of guilty of it too, but there's this battle still continuing on as if people's lives are on the line. Have you experienced that as well?
I have experienced a lot of it, and this is for all of my remembrances. I've only seen like pictures that have shown up years later for comparisons with Trump, is that there were no right-wing riots after Obama was elected. The right just kind of said, well, screw it, we lost, time to get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you might find a few things where it's like, okay, they burned Obama in effigy. And while that was a practice a long time ago, it's much different than burning down the White House or something similar.
Or protesting in the streets and trying to keep people from being able to speak about conservative values, for instance.
Yes. And it's different in that imagine, if you will, I was talking to a former British citizen. He's now an American, and he was hoping for Bernie Sanders to win, but he stated to me, we had a lovely conversation despite being on totally different ends of the political spectrum. He stated to me that compared to the rest of the world, Hillary Clinton was a moderate. And if we are
if by moderate you mean evil, manipulating crook, sure, yeah, she was moderate. Carry on.
Okay, so from my analysis of you, logic dictates that you are more right-leaning than you would be left-leaning for whatever reason. And now I want you to imagine what we would think of a 1984 society, where everything is monitored, everything is controlled by the central power of the government.
You mean like it is now?
Which is probably what we would have had. Yeah, exactly like how it is now. Only we have had it much, much worse in what we would assume underneath Hillary Clinton, because we probably actually have evidence of pay to play, and all these kind of shady backroom deals that pretty much would be presidency for hire. And I don't know about you, but I at least heaved a moderate sigh of relief in the morning when I found out that Donald Trump had won. It's like, okay, we probably have a bit more time left before the entire United States implodes in on itself, at least in a major way, compared to the bushfires that we're seeing with college protests and protests in other places.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, I did breathe a little sigh of relief. I know, nobody's really, this whole system, the way it's set up to begin with, is ridiculous to think that you can put one person at the top of the totem pole and have them be able to control and tell everybody what they can do with their lives. But if I had to choose one, if I had a gun to my head, I would definitely go with Trump over Hillary in that regard. However, it just seems like there's been, again, this mass hysteria going on afterwards. Like, I keep hearing constant talk of impeach all the time. Like, every little thing he does, every step out of line that he does, it has been a huge deal. It's become to the point. Like, I was making this list the other day, and I was noticing the kinds of things that people talk about. Because I listen to a number of different viewpoints. I don't just listen to the echo chamber things that agree with me, but I was listening to other podcasts where they're talking about the big deal about how he tapes his tie, or how he's afraid of stairs, or did he say bigly or did he say big league? It's like, come on, you got to be shitting me that you're worried about these little tiny things when we have some like serious issues going on. Like, you got to, like, yeah, I think, like I said, everybody knows that something's wrong, but when you look at, like, the hysteria on the left, they are convinced that Trump is the problem, when really there is something way more dark and insidious going on that people don't seem to realize. You kind of get where I'm going with this?
Yes, I was going to bring up that we are seeing the flag bearer term with the internet sensation that it was base stickman and the alt knights as they began to call themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing the rise of the radicalized left that you would find possibly in 1950s, like Venezuela, when Castro and Chavez began taking over and literally killing people, homosexuals, and everything else to further their political agendas.
Hell, that's going on
And
right now in Venezuela. I mean,
yes, and
that's going on right now, and the news is not covering it. Nobody seems to know what's going on. This stuff drives me nuts, I'm telling you.
It does, and this is why I have a decent associate. He's a good amount younger than me. He's like in high school, and he's like, you know what? We should try socialism in the United States. I'm thinking back to the Plymouth plantation. It's like, we tried that. We almost died. We have tried it everywhere else. Lots of people died. We tried
but
communism.
That's not true communism. We just haven't done it right. That's all. We just haven't gotten the correct person in power that's not going to be corrupted by that power. And that's why socialism has failed every time. We just got to try it one more time. You know, hundreds of millions of lives due to starvation alone. That's not enough. We got to try, you know.
Why not make it 1 billion?
Why not? You know, maybe at 1 billion we'll change our mind. Or not. Maybe we'll just double down and keep claiming that it's the wrong way. It just sense a little sarcasm on my end.
Oh, it's in heaps, man. This actually ties into my previous interview that I'd done that was unfortunately better structured than this, and I apologize for that. But I was asked what was my favorite quote from history, and of course, I like studying history, so it's like, oh my gosh, where's the one that doesn't involve mutilation? And I went with the one that's attributed to Benjamin Franklin, which was, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And I think we're seeing, personally, on the entire world scale, I think we're seeing a replay of two different parts of history playing out before us. And that is, despite the fact that Trump has been compared to Hitler like every day since before he was Mr. President, we're seeing the radicalization of left-wing forces as like Hitler's brown shirts were. This repressive regime starting to try to raise its head up and take control of a country. We're seeing that here, but I also think we're seeing a rendition of what originally started the Crusades, which was an uprising of Sunni adherents against their Shia overlords. And I was surprised to find out, I'm pretty sure this is accurate, that the current ISIS fighters are Sunni adherents. It's like, wow, we really are seeing history fold out again, and for me it's both invigorating to see things happen again, because like what was it like to live back in those times? Mm-hmm. But it's also alarming because looking back at those times, seeing the death, the destruction, how much people's lives are impacted, how many people lost their lives, it's like, oh crap, this is happening today.
I would recommend that anybody who is unclear about the Crusades and what they actually accomplished and what was actually going on during that time, check out Stefan Molyneux's The Truth About the Crusades. It's about 30 minutes of your time, and you will get a very in-depth story about how things actually happened and how we're seeing the exact same thing go down over in Europe right now. I'll link that in the low bar as well for anybody who wants to check that out. I wanted to ask you though about the quote that you said about those who they're doomed to repeat history for those who don't study it or don't understand it. The thing is, I don't really blame people for faulting on this because of the fact that history has been like hugely skewed from people's view and propagandized and manipulated to suit the elites and the power structure to, you know, it's been obscured from view, and people don't really know what's happened in the past and don't know that these are the things that have already been done before, and we're going to have to change things if we're not going to repeat it. But it's a a lot bigger issue in terms of public education, in terms of who controls the public education. It just a number of different issues like that. You think people would maybe be a little more apt to avoid repeating these mistakes if they were better educated?
I'll first lead off with a quote. I believe it was from Napoleon Bonaparte. History is written by the victors. And I would say that our current system of education in the United States, I was homeschooled, by the way, and the current public education system is failing its students.
I'll tell you, before you go on, I will tell you, I can tell a huge difference. You know, like I said, most 22 or 21 or 22-year-olds don't have the ability to think this critically or speak this eloquently on subjects, and I can definitely tell a difference between when I'm speaking with somebody who's been homeschooled versus somebody who's gone through a public education system.
Yes, and the goal of public education is it's not to create, at least what I experienced in the homeschool courses that I took. I was expected to know the material, go through it, complete the entire book. My brother, he was only partially homeschooled. He did go to public school. They didn't always get through the entire book. And the goal of public education today is not to create a beneficial member of society. It's to produce someone who's going to follow orders, to be quiet, to get all their ducks in a row, and not to be the creative. We normally think of them like a subculture, the people who are all covered in tattoos and who are artsy fartsy kind of thing, the people who actually make new things and make art. Those things go outside of the lines, for lack of a better term, in regards to the public education system. It's like, okay, what happens if little Bobby wants to draw mommy and daddy? So what if it offends someone who thinks it should be daddy and daddy? I mean, I'm going to leave that all the way over there because that's someone's personal preference, and the libertarian thing is like, okay, yeah, that they can do that, but little Bobby wants to draw mommy and daddy. I shouldn't condemn him because he has mommy and daddy, and he wants to draw them because he loves them. And we're seeing, at least for me, I don't know your opinions on it, but it's like the existence of homosexuality and stuff is it's taking it to the fore. There was an article, I didn't really read it, but it said people are trying to be transgender because it's cool. It's like, okay, leaving religious and other ideas about transgenderism aside, if someone wants to be transgender, they can be transgender. I start having a problem when people says, well, just because you're not transgender, you should be transgender. It's like, that's up to someone's personal preference or someone's personal belief about what their inner self is. And to create the inclusive society that the left says they want would be to accept the traditional marriage, the man with a man, the woman with a woman, the guy who used to be a woman and is now a guy with whomever. It's a basic contract for me, and I don't believe that people have the right to contract. This is another thing that I deal with, is these basic concepts of rights. People have the right to contract, and that's pretty much what a marriage is. And I cannot deny someone their right to contract. So that's my view on some of the problems that we're seeing today by these people who, predominantly on the left, say you shouldn't contract with someone. I'm on a tangent now. I'm sorry. Please save me from myself.
I'll tell you what. One of the biggest problems I have going back to the public education system is that it is entirely antithetical to growing individualism and creating individual people. That it's very, very well designed to create like factory employees, people who are going to move to the next class when the bell rings and sit in perfect little rows and little lines, and they're all going to do the same thing, and it's just this homogenous, ambiguous mold of people, and everybody has to be the same, and the sameness is something that drives me nuts. There's a TED Talk that I would definitely recommend called Build a School in the Cloud by Sugata Mitra, and that particular talk was incredibly life-changing on understanding how kids actually learn versus how we have been teaching them forever. Just to give a brief background, he actually goes in and he does these experiments, I guess, where he'll take and put a computer kiosk into these, middle of the nowhere, bumfuck Egypt, just, where people have never experienced anything, and just kind of leave it there and let them learn on their own what it is they do and how to work it and how to operate it and how to start actually manipulating it to get it to do what they want it to do. And he's found that what ends up happening is the older kids that learn it, they tend to teach the younger kids, and it's just there's a way different way that kids actually learn that is completely detached from what we currently see in the public school system. That's in my opinion, harming kids in more ways than we can even imagine. And like you were saying, you were homeschooled. I can only imagine that made a huge difference in your desire to learn new things and your ability to pick up things quicker. You didn't have to sit for hours on end in a little class and wait for a bell to ring and go on this schedule and that kind of thing. What was your experience with the homeschool life that you think gave you the advantage over your traditional public school child?
Well, I can say beyond a shadow of doubt that I had no summer. I did school throughout the entire year and maybe had 1 to 2 weeks off in the summer, plus with my other religious related times off. So I had about 4 to 6 weeks off the entire year. So I continued doing school and continuing the learning that I required, what was required for the classes, more consistently, because even with maybe a week off, it's like, okay, what was I doing again? What was this one problem that I had to deal with? It gave me a more consistent and a continuous line of, okay, I have the information, I have the tools that I need, and I have the problem. It sacrificed a lot of my free time, but it was more consistent, and I didn't have to try to relearn everything after spring break.
Oh my God, that was the worst when I would go back and try to get settled back into the habit. It's insane. That makes absolutely no sense, and it doesn't actually serve the kids at all.
Exactly, and I think that was one of the advantages of me being kind of lazy. It was to have the continuous line of information for school, so it wasn't I had to adjust because I was already adjusted. And I also think it's also part of my own need to learn, because I had dial-up internet for a long time, until 3 to 4 years ago. And I would just sit at the computer, wait for whatever text document that I could find that interested me to take 30 minutes to load up, and I would just, for lack of a better term, guzzle this information. I would read the dictionary just for the words. I would read through the entire encyclopedia books that we have from the 80s when it still says Reagan's still president, and you can see the differences in what we had back then than what we have now. Just touching on a very simple subject is that the way we say things and the way we communicate is less rich than it was not even 100 years ago, let alone 1,000 years ago.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well, Trent, I sure appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your experiences with us. It sounds like you are going to be destined for success, as if you could continue down this road as you are. Where's the best place for folks to reach you if they want to check out your work?
The best way to actually contact me would be through the Facebook page, The Irreverent Gentleman. It has to have that "the" there, otherwise it goes to an entirely different page. The Gentleman's University of Manliness at WordPress.com is also where I put most of my free material. And you can also contact me at Twitter at GentDIrreverend, and that is spelled using the international alphabet: Golf, Echo, November, Tango, Delta, Echo, India, Romeo, Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, November, or GENT, DEIRREVEN. So you can send me a private message.
All right, folks.
There.
You heard it from the man himself, Trent Gander. We look forward to speaking with you again, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. And maybe we'll grow together as, inspire. What's the word I'm looking for here? Aspiring content creators. That's what I was looking for.
I hope to be back sometime.